Alright, settle in everyone, because Uncle 3 is back for our 26th night of ghost stories. Tonight's tale is a special one for me, as I'll be adding the sound of rain, because the entire story unfolded on a rainy afternoon about 15 years ago. It was sent to me by a friend named Junhao, who is from Thailand, and naturally, he couldn't reveal the exact location where these chilling events took place. It all began on Jun's very first day at a new advertising company. His job there was to be the company's photographer. The office was located on Ratchaprarop Soi 3 in the Pratunam area. Jun had actually worked there for a while before. While they called it a company, Jun told me that in reality, it was just him and his boss. That meant Jun was responsible for absolutely everything. From parking cars and chasing down overdue payments for his boss, to cleaning the office and handling all sorts of odd jobs and maintenance. In those early days, his boss mainly focused on finding clients, which for such a small company were incredibly rare. Around that time, Jun had just bought himself a Canon 350D camera. This was back in 2010, mind you, and the memory cards you could buy were tiny. Only 1 gigabyte, not like the 256 or 512 gigabyte cards we have today. And believe me, this camera is central to our story tonight. The advertising company's office was a rented house on Ratchaprarop Soi 3. It looked new and had 2 floors. Jun's workspace was on the upper floor, while his boss worked downstairs on the ground floor. Jun's room on the upper floor was completely sealed off. No windows, no balcony, nothing. This was because it was purpose-built as a photography studio, so all 4 walls had to be sealed to prevent any outside light from leaking in. Only the ground floor had a view of the street. One day, just like any other, a third person joined the company. It was a young woman who was hired as the accountant. Both Jun and his boss were incredibly welcoming that day. They were a bit worried she might be put off by how few people worked there, and they really needed an accountant. Now, when she arrived, she apparently picked up Jun's camera and handled it. Jun didn't pay much attention at the time, so he wasn't entirely sure if she actually took a photo, but he did hear the distinct clicking sound coming from the camera. Later that day, Jun took his camera upstairs to the studio to photograph some clients. After he was done, he opened his computer to copy the images. As he was filtering through and copying the pictures to send to the clients, he came across an extraordinary photograph. It showed an ancient house with what looked like an ornamental tree in front. The house also had a nameplate with an address attached. Now, because this story happened 15 years ago, and Jun unfortunately deleted that photo, there's no physical evidence to show you. But Uncle 3 did try his best to sketch the house based on Jun's description for all of you to see. At first, Jun thought, where did this house come from? When did I even take this? But do you know why Jun paid so much attention to this particular house? It was because of its ancient, beautiful architecture. It was old but possessed a remarkable, timeless beauty that Jun, being an artistic person who chose photography, found incredibly appealing. So, when this distinct image appeared among hundreds of client photos, he just had to click on it. He noticed that the composition of the photo was all wrong. It was skewed to one side. So Jun grabbed his camera and took it downstairs to show the accountant. He asked her, "Did you take this picture?" But she replied, "I didn't touch your camera." Jun pressed her, asking again, "Are you sure you didn't touch it?" I saw you holding the camera and I distinctly heard clicks. The accountant then explained, I truly didn't touch your camera to take a photo. I was cleaning the desk earlier, so I just picked up your camera to wipe it down and then I put it back. I didn't take any pictures or do anything with your camera. John was utterly perplexed, wondering, then who on earth took this picture? He then took his camera into his boss's office. He asked, Did you take this picture, boss? And his boss replied, I didn't touch your camera at all. At this point, John felt a growing sense of unease. There was no reason for either of them to lie, nor did they have any reason to touch his camera. Plus, Jun had only heard the clicks. He hadn't actually seen anyone take the photo. Jun began to think of something supernatural. Thailand, after all, is a land rich with spiritual tales. To be sure, Jun went outside to explore the area around Pratunam, hoping to see if anyone had a house similar to the one in the photo. He wished it were just an accident. Maybe he'd accidentally pressed the shutter. After all, the composition of the image was so strange, so crooked. It wasn't straight, and if John had intentionally taken the picture, he would have taken a much better one. But John walked through the entire alley, searching everywhere, and he didn't find a single house that looked like it. Still, he decided it wasn't that important at the time, so he put that memory card aside and used a different 1 gigabyte card for his work. Then, one day, a friend needed to borrow a memory card, so John had to delete all the photos on it before giving it to his friend. However, the day before that, John had taken his camera to the small restaurant next door to his company's rented house. This was a little eatery that specialized in breakfast. John ate there every morning and drank coffee, and he became pretty close with the coffee shop owner. On this particular day, for some reason, June suddenly remembered that the coffee shop owner had been born and raised in that very alley. So June showed him the picture on his camera and asked, "Brother, is there anyone in our neighborhood who has a house like this?" The owner looked at the photo, contemplating it for a while, his gaze distant, deep in thought. The way he furrowed his brow was as if he wanted to say, "This picture is so familiar. I feel like I've seen it somewhere in my memory before." Indeed, the image was clearly etched in his memory. A moment later, he said to John, "This house, kid, how did you take it?" John then recounted what had happened. "I left my camera on the table, right near the door, and the lens cap was on. But then, after I finished my work, I found this picture on my camera." What the owner said next sent chills down John's spine. "John, what you found is terrifying, because I remember now. The house you photographed is this house." And he pointed his finger to the right. John looked over, and it was a row of houses all built close together, but none of them looked anything like the house John had photographed. The owner then added, "That house, the one in your picture, is the old house. The one you see now is new. People tore the old one down and rebuilt it like this. They demolished that old house because back then it was haunted by a possessed corpse." Jun was absolutely terrified, a shiver running down his spine. He immediately asked, "What happened, brother?" The owner explained that an old, difficult woman used to live in that house. She practiced black magic there, and everyone in the neighborhood feared her. She grew a plant in front of her home, and it wasn't an ordinary plant. It was a hexing herb. And do you know how she fed that plant? At first, it was chicken eggs, but later her hexing herb regularly consumed dogs, cats, and rats from the area, growing to its enormous size. After she died, since she had no relatives, some people from the area came to arrange her funeral. What happened next was truly gruesome. On the day they were preparing her for burial, her body was laid out in the yard because her house was too small for the ceremony indoors. That night, no one understood why, but people saw her wake up and walk around. She ravenously ate all the offerings. People were terrified. They started to see her fingernails slowly growing longer. So, everyone desperately rushed to a nearby pagoda to invite a Buddhist monk to perform an exorcism on this woman who had died but was now awake. When the monk arrived, he wrote a talisman. But this monk said it wasn't an ordinary talisman. It was a bribe talisman. This meant the monk wasn't trying to suppress the demon, but rather to bribe it to leave the woman's body so she could finally rest and be buried. When the monk arrived, he burned the talisman and threw it into a house. Immediately, the woman collapsed onto the floor and lay motionless. However, no one dared to step foot inside that house for an entire hour. Only when the monk declared that it was safe to enter and take her body for cremation did the surrounding villagers dare to go in. But even after that, the house remained gloomy and unsettling. People in the Pratunam area often heard the sound of crying and agonizing moans coming from that house. After June heard this story that day, he didn't tell anyone at the company. But now June felt a deep fear. The peak of this fear came when he had a slight experience with that woman from the story, also on a rainy afternoon. That day, it was pouring rain, and June couldn't go home. His two colleagues had already put on their raincoats and left half an hour earlier, leaving Jun as the last one. This meant Jun had to lock all the doors. Usually, it wouldn't be a problem, but that day, after hearing the story, Jun was too terrified. He didn't even dare to go upstairs to lock the second floor door. That wasn't his only problem. June didn't have a raincoat, but if he left now, his camera would get damaged. And if he left the camera at the company, what if it took another ghostly picture? Jun just sat there, huddled with his knees to his chest in front of the company door. He didn't dare look towards the house across the street. All he could do was pray to the heavens for the rain to ease up so he could dash to the nearby pagoda. Fortunately, about an hour later, the rain stopped. Jun immediately locked all the doors. As he slammed the last door shut with a thud, Jun heard a very faint laugh from behind that door. It was truly horrifying for Jun. He told Uncle Three that in that moment, a part of his soul died right there. Needless to say, Jun sprinted as fast as he could to a nearby pagoda. When he arrived, he recounted his entire story to the monks. He described the image he had seen of the house from the past. The monk told him, "I will perform a ritual for you to put something in your camera." The monk also said, "I think this is just an invisible connection. It just wants to play around. It probably saw the camera and found it strange, so it's just messing with it. There's nothing to worry about, my child." After that, the monk performed a ritual for Jun. He didn't just make one talisman, he made 3. One was to be placed inside the camera body, and the other was rubbed over Jun's camera. Then he told Jun to delete all the photos. Though Jun had already deleted them, perhaps this was a symbolic gesture. The monk then tied the memory card with a rubber band to one of the talismans. And the third talisman the monk gave to Jun to wear around his neck. He told June to wear it for a month, and if anything happened again within that month, he should immediately return to see him. Fortunately, after that incident, Jun never encountered any more strange images. He wore the talisman for a month, right up until the day he left that company. This is a story that June will never forget. A story about a very modern camera that managed to capture a house from the past, a home that no longer exists, a place where a possessed corpse once resided. That's the end of our rainy afternoon story for the 26th night. Uncle 3 will see you all next night, the 27th. Goodbye, and make sure you're not alone in the room.